All right. Well, welcome everyone. You have tuned into Conversations with Annette and Leilani, and we are so excited that you are here today. And you're probably thinking, yeah, but what is Conversations with Annette and Leilani? Well, Leilani and I are both coaches in two different arenas, and we have the opportunity from time to time to have great conversations. We just talk about random things. And every time that we're done with one of those conversations, I have this thought, you know, that was an awful lot of excellent information and experience that the two of us just shared. I bet you other people could grow and learn and would appreciate hearing some of those conversations. And that's what we're going to do today. We're just going to have a conversation about a specific topic, and we hope that at the end, the result will be you learn something about yourself, you grow in some way about your situations, and you could even share this with someone else who you think it would be beneficial for. But before we dive into that conversation, how about you find out who we are? I'm going to have Leilani introduce herself, and then I will go. So, Leilani, tell us who you are.
Okay, well, I'm Leilani Sayas, and I'm a life coach who helps adults with brain fog, focus, and forgetting concerns think and feel better despite their brain wiring differences. I'm also a working memory expert with over 20 years of research experience around the area of working memory, which is an executive function that we use nearly all the time. So I have a doctorate in educational psychology and love to get deep and share about how our brains work so that we can all better understand ourselves.
Excellent. Just so you know, every time I talk with Leilani, I walk away with this. I always feel smarter after talking to her. Now you know why, because she's smart. I am a health and wellness coach, and I guide my audience and my clients to think and create proactive and preventative health goals for themselves. I specialize in those living with chronic health conditions. I am a legally blind type 1 diabetic since the age of 2, so I can speak to the idea of living beyond your diagnosis when it comes to chronic health conditions. So that is who we are. Now let's get into that conversation. So a couple of months ago, I think it was, we were talking again randomly about the whole idea of when you get off kilter, that very scientific and medical phrase, off kilter. No matter what the reason, it might be a schedule change, it might be a health issue, might be a relationship issue, just something happens that causes you to not feel quite like you got your bearings straight. And what is that all about? And I decided after that discussion to bring in a real life application. Yep, I went and broke my finger just so we could have this conversation with you. No, I did not. I was
You're
on
the
my,
real deal, Annette.
I know, I am committed. I am all in. I was on my walk and I hit a patch of slippery leaves and went down, and my pinky said, "Oh, Annette, let me break your fall." And it did. And I did. And at the time, I remember thinking, oh, it's a tiny little bone. It's a tiny bone. How big a problem could that be? Well, I'm now into my third week in a cast. And whenever anybody says, "So how are you doing?" This is my reply: I'm losing brain cells. The longer I have this cast on, the more frustrated I get, the more exhausted I get. My left hand and I are having conversations that are not always pleasant because it does not want to be my right hand. And my right hand is just so frustrated because it can't do what it normally does. And I'm just exhausted and so worn out. And I'm like, why? Why is this happening? And I go to my friend Leilani and I say, help me figure this out. And boom, she tells me what's going on. So Leilani, share with the rest of the group what is happening in my wild and crazy brain and with my hands here.
Yeah. Well, your wild and crazy brain may be a little hard to explain to folks, but I do think that because you temporarily lost your ability to use your finger, everything about the way you ordinarily do stuff is off, whether that's grabbing the handle on a mug writing, holding your toothbrush, all the signals that normally get sent and the way that they get sent is kind of off, slightly off. And so your brain can't automatically access those long-term memory, what we call representations, right? Or those long-term memories, how to do that stuff, right? Without needing to make some kind of processing adjustment. So when your brain is thinking, for example, I want a drink of coffee, ordinarily you have a process for that, right? You have a procedure, you have a way of grabbing that handle, but because you've done it a million times before, right? You've had lots of practice, but now you can't. And so your brain has to course correct and figure out, okay, how am I going to do this differently? And that takes cognitive energy, right? That whole extra business, because your cast is preventing movement, the signals that are being sent to your pinky aren't even the regular signals, right? There's a disruption there because there's a broken piece there. So you have to make twice as many adjustments. Even if you're not aware of it, your brain's doing it on your behalf. So all of that can then take more of your energy, make you feel tired, make you feel like you're losing brain cells because you can't focus on things in the same way that you ordinarily would. Now, you have to focus just to grab a pen and try and write with your other hand, and everything's a little off. But with practice, the crazy thing is that pretty soon your brain will start to become more efficient in how it's doing it this new way. And so your brain will start to become better and better at allowing you to work around these detours, if you will. And then it's going to become an adjustment to go back to your pre-broken finger way. So talk about crazy brain, right? But there's a lot of adjustment here that people think, oh, it's just a small finger. It's not even a main thing like my thumb.
Right.
But we're so connected between, all the different signals that our brain has to receive and send, and with our outer environment, our internal environment, and desires and needs. And so there's a lot going on, and that can be exhausting.
Absolutely. I love that you use grabbing a coffee cup as an example. I'm not sure if you know this, but I'm a coffeeholic.
Oh no.
I'm talking throughout the day and I'm like,
top one frustration.
Yeah. Thank you for pointing that out.
Well, so how are you adjusting with making all these kinds of changes?
Yeah, the whole idea of compensating and adapting to what's going on. A couple of things. It was after one of our other talks and it dawned on me. One of the things that I keep saying to myself is, this too shall pass. This is not a permanent situation. Now I realize that people who have chronic health conditions, as I do with type 1, I can never say that this too shall pass. I mean, momentary situations will, but that's always going to be with me. But in this case, I just keep saying, this is not permanent. This is just taking time to deal with. And that's a really good reminder for me. The second thing that I'm doing is I'm creating those short-term goals that when I see, first saw the doctor, he said 1 week in a splint. And my phrase was, I can do anything for 1 week. I can do anything for 1 week. Then I saw the doctor again. The first cast was 10 days. Okay, 10 days. I can do anything for 10 days. And the next time I saw him, okay, 2 weeks. So 2 weeks in this cast, and then I get to go into a brace. But it's really been helpful for me to be able to create those milestones, those markers to say, all right, just get to this point. Look at what your schedule is doing. Look at where you need to be. Look at what you want to have done and figure out that's how long you have to be able to do that. The third thing that I'm doing is I'm asking for a lot of help. Because I'm legally blind, I have to ask for a lot of help with things anyways, but I needed to get an agenda typed up a couple of weeks ago and I can't type. So I had a friend come over and I simply dictated to her and she typed out the agenda and we got it sent out. And it was actually easy, but I'm realizing I have to think a lot harder about, how am I going to accomplish that? How am I going to make that happen? So there's even more thinking in this than, just the simple reaching for a cup of coffee, but it's that looking forward to say, I have to have these things done. I need to figure out a way to accomplish those things in that time frame. So those are just three things that right off the bat, that and trying to remind myself to give myself a little bit more grace and mercy and say, you know what? You didn't plan on this. It's happened. Just do the best you can in the meantime. So,
Yeah. Oh, those are wonderful strategies, all of them. I mean, from not only the way that you are emotionally dealing with this to logistically, I mean, you've got it covered. I mean, yeah.
I got it covered, and yet I'm like, still at this point, but
I would just say if you wanted, if there was one other thing that I would add to up level your amazing self-advocacy skills, which are already super strong, I would say the only other thing that you might want to consider to add would be to nurture your brain a little extra during this time. Because even though it's not your brain that's wearing the cast, because it's doing all of this extra work on your behalf, right? Even if you're not conscious of it, return the favor by giving yourself some brain breaks, give it some time of lowered activation, whether that's just meditation or whether that's literally just tuning down all the stimulation, giving yourself some periodic mental rest throughout the day, not naps, but like some mental rest, and just taking.
But I like naps. Can I not take naps?
Well, we don't want to create another problem with your sleep at night. So
it doesn't affect my sleep at night. Sorry.
No. So just, giving your brain just some breaks so that way you're not pushing yourself too hard, because it can be so easy to do, right? You're used to living your life in this normal way, and your brain is used to being able to keep up in that normal way. So it's going to try and find all these other circuits and ways around to keep you functioning in the way that you want to, but it all comes at a cost when it accumulates.
Yeah. As you well may know, I have a very high functioning degree of, oh gosh, the word just escaped me, but yeah, living independently. I'm legally blind. I'm a type 1 diabetic, but I value very highly living independently. And so in this case, I mean, even again, that asking for more help, asking for more help, asking for more help. Yes, I can do that, but that is exhausting. But, my brain is saying, you will not give up the living independently. You just will not. I had a friend early on say, well, do you want to come and stay with me until things settle down? And I'm like, no, of course not. I said, thank you so much for your offer. I really appreciate that. But I said, no, I'm, as always, I mean, that is one of the things that I do is I live life to the fullest, despite what limitations I may have, especially with the visual part, which is another component that being legally blind, I was told a number of years ago that same exact scenario you were using as an example, when a sighted person has that thought reaching for a cup of coffee that they do 1,000 times, for me it's about 4 million times that I've done it, but they get the thought, they reach for the cup, they don't even think about it. As a visually impaired person, you get the thought and then you have to think, okay, where is that cup? Which direction is the handle facing? If I'm reaching with my right hand, how am I going to get around there? Make sure that I don't burn my hand on the cup, grab it, don't spill it, lift it up. So there's even more thinking when you're visually impaired than if you're not. And now we have the added, ta-da! And so, yeah, and that does explain a great deal about my level of exhaustion. The first week, I was just, oh my gosh, I was so tired. And you're right that as I've gone on, I've learned those compensation, I've learned those adapting skills, and I'm not nearly as exhausted, but definitely a part of the whole process. So
you have your brain cells. You're not losing them, even if it feels like it.
Yeah, I'm not losing them. It just feels like sometimes I am, but I'm grateful for your reassurance that I have not lost. I can't afford to lose anymore.
You're growing new ones, actually. So
that's what I'm doing, and empowering the ones that I have. and there, yeah, that is great. Well, I just want to thank you. I will end on this note that when I sent pictures of what, or I texted my family and I did send them pictures, and one of my family members, not sure my brother or nephew-in-law, said, well, Annette, at least it wasn't your middle finger. To which I said, so true. Thank you for that. I don't know what that was, but yeah, that's my family. We handle crisis with sarcasm, and I appreciate it most of the time. So, well, Leilani, thank you so much. This has been great. I appreciate your insight and your expertise and helping me to realize that, yeah, this really is something that's going on that at first I thought would be insignificant, but then realized, no, it's pretty significant. And yet anybody who's going through as we were talking about, that kind of out of whack, or things being out of kilter, whatever that means, anything that disrupts our normal routines is real. And it is something that we can, with our brain and different ways that we have, deal with it, accept it, acknowledge it, move forward, and figure out how to compensate for that. And I appreciate your insight on that. And absolutely. I just want to say to everyone watching, if you've enjoyed this conversation, silliness and all, this is what we kind of do. We would love for you, if you're watching this on YouTube, to give it a thumbs up, subscribe. Sure, that was easy to say. Subscribe. And on Facebook, you can do likewise. You can find Leilani and I. We have different websites. Mine is amulliganspeaks.com. And Leilani, what is your website?
Naturalcapacities.com.
There we go. So if you'd like to have further conversations with us personally, or use us as a coach in your future going forward, absolutely contact us. We would love to connect with you. Thank you so much for watching, and you all take care. Bye now.
Bye.